I want to get into the massive box office failure of Joker 2. And it's so deserved. I was actually spoiling this movie for everyone on X over the weekend because you actually deserve to know what happened in this movie so you don't waste your money on seeing it. You should not support these people. This was just a massive failure for Joker 2. They got $40 million in its first domestic opening weekend on a budget of $200 million. So they basically got a blank check for this to do whatever they wanted. Most of it probably went to the payday for Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga. Everyone basically agreed from a production standpoint, from a standpoint of just the cinematography, this is a great looking movie, but everything else about it is just insanity. Makes no sense whatsoever.
I've yet to have a single person explain to me why they went in the musical direction. Even if this movie was a good musical, why would you completely reinvent the wheel?
Well, that's
the success of the first one.
One of the main complaints is that they add in these musical numbers at the worst moments that takes all of the suspense out of every single scene. And it's not even so that you can hear Lady Gaga sing, because she's singing like this. She's not even belting.
That's what I heard, is like the singing isn't really singing. It's like we're technically singing, but we're mostly just talking.
Well, so you've never seen the first
I haven't
Joker.
seen either Joker movie. And I'm going to be honest, like, it's one of those things that I'll be on Amazon or whatever looking for something to watch, and I'm like, oh, I should watch that. It is solely the fact that it is not on like Netflix or Hulu, and that's usually where me and my girlfriend are watching stuff. So I just never see it, but I've been meaning to go out of my way to watch the first Joker. Now I'm scared.
No, you should watch the first
I heard the first
Joker.
One's incredible.
The first one, I wouldn't call it incredible, but what I loved about the first one is just the moment in time that it came out with this cultural impact. And when I watch it, I feel like it's pre-pandemic again. And like, for a lot of people, the first Joker movie was the last time that they've been in a movie theater.
Yeah.
Period. Like, after COVID, they just dropped off and lost interest. And I can't blame them, because everything that's been coming out since has kind of been dog shit. Or at least if it wasn't, they don't really deserve the goodwill and people giving them a second chance, third chance anymore. So for a lot of people, like, their movie theater experience ended in fall of 2019. And it wasn't just that, it was the cultural impact of all of the media in a resounding choir telling you that it's immoral to go see this movie. And that made it feel subversive to identify with the character.
Didn't they have to do like trigger warnings when the first one came out? Am I remembering that correctly?
I don't think that they inserted trigger warnings.
Not in the movie itself, but I think in some of the marketing they did.
Perhaps. I don't remember that specifically.
Because of the one scene. I don't want to ruin it for Aiden.
Wait, you mean the second one or the first
one?
Oh, okay. Is it the one where somebody gets shot rather suddenly?
Yeah.
I've seen all the memes.
Oh, okay.
That's part of the reason I haven't gone out of my way to watch the movie, is I'm like, well, I know what happens.
TW, gun violence. Like, I just can't. I can't.
Yeah, and it's like they're almost ashamed to like highlight a problem that is very real when it's like the depravity of man. You hear this in the arts all the time, of like just like the darkness that a person is capable of when you take everything from them. And they were ashamed that they wrote a movie about that when it's a very real thing that happens.
I think some of it is, I think, the Marvel effect of like, everything has to be either totally black and white, or there has to be more nuance than you can possibly deal with in a single film. Nothing is just nothing is just pure good versus evil anymore. Even the superheroes have to have flaws, and that's cool. But, you know, there used to be stories where it was just one side's good and the other side's bad, and that's okay. And now I feel like Hollywood is going out of its way to make everything some gray area, nuanced, you know, subvert your expectations kind of thing. And there's times where that's appropriate, but then you don't always need to do it. And I feel like what Joker was a very real look at, like, you know, this is a real story. This is not just comic books or us trying to, you know, philosophize about how the world should be. It was a movie about mental health and what happens when somebody has lost everything.
I think,
and a lot of men identified with it, and what I think happened was the wrong kind of audience identified with that movie. They were looking for the art crowd. They were looking for the, you know, the philosophy crowd. What they got was the, you know, I feel like I've been left behind by society crowd, and they loved that movie and they rallied around it. And yeah, there were some people who
They
took it the wrong way. But this almost, I saw somebody suggesting that this is basically like a fuck you to the, screw you to those guys.
Dude, you say whatever you want to say.
But yeah, like.
No, yeah, I mean.
I was told before the show I'm not allowed to do precisely that.
No, you're not allowed to make violent threats
Fair.
or violent jokes.
Right.
Cursing, do whatever you want in that regard. However, but yeah, the title of that Rolling Stone piece was Todd Phillips has one message for fans with Joker 2. And it's F you, like
Yeah.
a middle finger right in their faces. And that's why you deserve to fail. Like, you deserve to be embarrassed like this.
With the first one, you're right, Aiden. Like, I think they created an anti-hero when they were supposed to be creating a villain, and it backfired. Because people, like, there's a reason people love Deadpool. Like, relating with the guy that's not the noble and good guy, it's fun. That's why
Sure.
Deadpool is a success. And I think the reason that, like, I know you said this is different than Marvel, the first Joker movie, but not entirely. If you look at the very first early Marvel projects, like Captain America and Iron Man, they took a normal dude, and then they made him super. And that's kind of what they did with Joker. He's this normal guy that's got mental illness problems, right? He's a clown. He's a street clown. He dresses up for money. You know, he's trying to get by. He lives in a crappy apartment, and then they show how he becomes this comic book villain that we've all known for years. And it's like you know, being able to relate, like, to really, like, make him relate to the regular, like, humans.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem so spectacular. Or you get someone like the Hulk. You know, it's like this big green monster. They had to make Bruce Banner. They had to show the scientific side or people wouldn't relate to it. And I think that's kind of another reason that this movie did well. The first one, not the second one.
Right.
It did well because people were like, oh, he was a regular person at first. And then we see the arc. You know, which Joker never had. Joker's always just been the crazy villain in the Batman movies. He never had anything like this.
It's like anyone could be the Joker, I guess.
Yeah.
Was kind of the message.
Even though
But like, it is.
they went in a different direction, but yeah,
It
anyone
wasn't
can.
just like relatable on a human level. Like, I didn't relate to the Joker. I'm not a man. Okay, so I think it's important to emphasize that, like, yeah, young, disillusioned, mostly white, single men liked this movie and identified with this character, and they had to get punished for it. That was the message that was sent by the sequel. And since you haven't seen it, I don't know how much you know about it so far. I told you about it a little bit on the phone yesterday.
I've heard what I needed to hear.
Basically, in case you missed it, and in case you're not planning to go see this movie, as you shouldn't, the Joker gets his Joker persona gang raped out of him. Okay? He gets gang raped by prison guards in the movie. I'm not apologizing for spoilers because you shouldn't see it anyway. That's what happens. And after that, the Joker persona is no more. I can't give you a better explanation because that was literally that was the plot. And the point of it is to humiliate this character and also erase the part of him that people identified with and simply kill him off. And it was a very resounding message of F you to the men who liked the first movie. And it didn't even perform for the girls and the gays they were trying to reach with Lady Gaga being in it.
Yeah, I just don't get, like, looking at the film, I don't understand how you have what you had there. And this is deliberate.
We got a 20 from Painful.
Just says, yeah,
Thank you.
Enough said. It's painful.
Yeah.
It's painful.
I mean,
Thank you.
either don't make a sequel, because you don't need to. This was a good standalone project. It did very well, and it didn't need a sequel. Nobody asked for a sequel.
Right.
It didn't really, from what I understand, it didn't set up a sequel.
No.
It had the first movie ended in a way that it opened the door for future projects, right? Because, like, he's standing in a riot where people are adoring him.
Well,
And
I thought
he
at
had
the
become
end,
the Joker at that point.
At
So it's
the
like,
end, he's in the, I guess I would call it a mental hospital. He's in the room and he's looking off into the distance, smoking his cigarette. You're not supposed to know at that point of the movie whether all of it was a delusion, like a psychotic episode or not. Then they just kind of shattered that curiosity and that wonder you had in the first minutes of Joker 2, because it just outright tells you all of it was real. It all happened. They made TV movies about him. He's a local celebrity. He's a true crime celebrity who has super fans and hybristophiliac women who are all over him. Like, that's the beginning of the movie, and it's just like, okay, I don't care anymore. Like, there's nothing to wonder about. And it's like, in the first movie, he had this delusion that he was in a relationship with one of his neighbors in his apartment building, and they reveal that later on in the movie, that it was all in his head the whole time. But this romance with Harley Quinn in this movie, who goes by Lee, by the way, not Harley. That's all portrayed as real, totally real. It's not all in his head. She actually did find him because she's obsessed with him and start a romance with him.
But she's not the doctor, right?
She's not the doctor. She's another patient.
So, like, that is such a great, like,
why are you messing up a story that was already great?
The story of Harley Quinn, truly, like in the comic books, is probably one of the greatest stories out of any comic book.
But they don't have the guts.
Or villain, because it's like, imagine you're the doctor in an insane asylum and you fall for this insane patient to the point where you become their sidekick, and you're doing crime and you're doing all this just reprehensible thing, all this stuff, because out of love. It's like, that was such a fantastic story.
Well, not even love, but like infatuation.
It was timeless too. You could write that story in any era, and they just, for no reason.
So that was in the trash immediately.
Yeah, and it's like, other than like, we want to destroy the great art that exists.
Yeah.
I don't see any other reason for them making those
subversion
changes.
For the sake of subversion. And it matters to me that this wasn't a delusion in his mind, because he then got rejected by Harley. Here's another spoiler. Harley Quinn rejects Arthur Fleck later in the movie, walks away from him because he didn't go along with her plan where she wanted him to throw the trial and they were going to run away together. So she rejects him, humiliates him, and then directly after that he gets gang raped in prison and the Joker is dead. And then he's actually dead at the end.
Yeah.
So could you really like
they killed him?
Make it any more obvious what the purpose of this movie was?
Damage control.
I mean, yeah, they killed the Joker first via rape, and then they killed Arthur Fleck after that.
But also,
stabbing.
like, why? Nobody was talking about the Joker. If they hadn't made a sequel, nobody would have been thinking about the Joker this year.
They announced the sequel years ago.
Yeah.
And it was, people welcomed it. They're like, okay, a
Sure.
sequel. This was a fantastic
We were open
movie.
to the idea.
We were open to the idea.
And then they said it's going to be a musical.
They said it's going to be a musical.
Well, the musical was like, I don't know about that, but maybe they could do it right if it's like this. But
and that's why no one really talked about it until the release, is because you shattered any kind of hope and excitement with the fact that it's a musical. It's like, okay, so this is just going to be distracting me from a really gripping, story.
Sure.
And
I was ready to like it. I wanted to like it. I thought maybe this is like gonna be what the Crow reboot thought it would be.
When you were out last week, we weren't talking about Joker, but we were talking about all the everything now is a reboot, a reimagination. Like, we know that's not news anymore. But I'm like, what really upsets me the most is not that they're destroying great art, but it's like that these directors are being like critically acclaimed and they're lazy. I'm like, if I was a big Hollywood investor and someone came to me with a reboot or a reimagining, I'd be like, you're lazy. You are not deserving of my investment, of my money.
Well, I bet that it was Warner Brothers who wanted to make this idea a reality, and Todd Phillips now says, I'm done with DC. I'm not making any other DC movies. But
so you think he's sabotaged?
What's lazy is, first of all, you didn't add to the story. You literally just killed the first story. But also, it took you 5 years to get the movie out. 5 years, and on the first one made over $1 billion, and it took you 5 years.
I do kind of
to capitalize on that.
I do kind of because COVID and then the writer's strike, like it probably was a little difficult to make a movie. But what you just said, Kellen, I think is a good question. Is like, this movie did not need a sequel. People were excited about a sequel, expecting it to be kind of like the first movie. Is it possible that Warner Brothers was like, no, you need to make a sequel, and this was the director or writer's room way of saying, stop making us make sequels for things that don't need sequels? Like, could it be? But then why would
needs a sequel.
But why would Joaquin Phoenix go along with it? Or was it just that they wrote a terrible script and hoped that Joaquin Phoenix being a generational talent would be enough to carry it? Because,
well, he did a significant amount of work to carry it, but the script was so effing bad that there's just no way around it. And he's an artist. He doesn't care about what the movie originally meant to people because he's just an actor. He doesn't he's not like on social media. He doesn't care. So I see why he thinks this would be like a valuable follow-up.
And I truly think that these people in the writer's room and just everything behind the scenes for production of this movie, I bet they thought they were so innovative. They're like, oh my God, drinking their own Kool-Aid in a way.
Drinking their own piss.
Like, they're like, oh my God, guys, we're going to be revolutionize superhero movies, a musical. And they're probably all clapping for each other and giving each other a pat in the back. And I'm like, that's like the laziest thing you could do. Let's take the first movie, add a couple new characters. And make it a musical. Dude, that's just laziness.
Yes.
It's like the Krabby Patty meal from Wendy's. It's just a Dave single.
Here's the thing. Don't attribute to incompetence what can more easily be explained by malice. That's my slogan right now. Because you should not underestimate how much these people hate you. They hate you.
Maybe it was just a tax write-off.
You know who should do it?
Maybe they got halfway through the script and they were like, we're not going to be able to make this a good movie.
Brett would agree with you often when we see big flops like this and it's like unexplainable. He would be like, oh, well, now, tax write-off.
Joker 2 has underperformed lower than the Marvels from Disney, obviously, and The Flash, another DC movie, which were both expected to be massive flops, but this is even worse than the first one.
Can I say, though, I'm happy about this year because Joker 2 was trash. Everything Marvel put out was trash. The Acolyte was trash. Okay. Basically every single thing that big studios have tried to make has been trash. Rings of Power is not just trash, but an insult to Tolkien and anybody who ever cared about him. Like, what we've seen this year is massive studio, Warner Brothers, Disney, like the biggest studios in the world fail over and over and over again, which means they are going to have to go back to the drawing board and ask the question, can I survive if I double down? And I don't think they will.
I would agree with you if it weren't for the huge success of Deadpool 3.
But the thing about Deadpool 3 is it was riding on the coattails of two earlier movies that everybody loved. And from what I understand, Deadpool 3, I haven't seen it yet. From what I understand, it's a decent movie and it doesn't try to be something it's not.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.